Okay, here we go for my AP Psychology. This should be Unit 2, Lecture 6. And for my on-level psychology, this lecture should be the equivalent of Unit 1, Lecture 1, being the fact that both classes are going over the same material. I'm using the same video lecture for both, but they fall into different areas of scope and sequences. But this is the introduction of evolutionary psychology. This will go for a couple of periods. We'll do half the lecture today and or in this video, and then half the lecture will come up in another video as well. So yeah, this will be evolutionary psychology, where we're taking a look at the idea of nature versus nurture, how much of us was the way we were born, which is nature, and how much of us is a result of our surroundings, how we're loved, how we're nurtured. And today we're going to focus on the nature part of that. For those of you with AP psychology experience, remember when we went over the history of psychology, we came off that uh, most psychologies go with the idea that it's a 50-50 split, that half of who you are, you're pre-wired, it's destined, but half of who you are is part of your environment, except intelligence. Intelligence is about 75 DNA and about 25 of your environment. So that's what we're going to take a look at with this lecture. Questions to consider. If you're reviewing this and you've seen this in class, this is stuff we've already talked about. You may want to fast forward. You're on a boat, overturned, it contains your 5-year-old and your 1-year-old, you're both boys or they're both girls. Boat sinks, you can only save one. Who do you choose? Within the class lecture, we had a lot of people that said, I would save the 5-year-old first, because if we're going to be washed ashore on an island or something else, I want to make sure that I have somebody who can kind of take care of themselves and everything else. Plus, since they're 5, they'll, if they're drowning, they have a mindset of what it's like and everything else. Whereas some people would say, I would save the 1-year-old, because that's a natural instinct, a little bit more helpless. The 5-year-old, you give it a shot, see if you can swim. So there's kind of a little bit of a split on that. Would you rather marry someone older or younger than yourself? Again, when this question is presented in class, if asked of the girls, they tend to focus on somebody older. When asked of the men, they tend to focus on somebody younger. It's because women are looking more for a provider, whereas men are looking more for a reproducer. And again, this is cross-culturally that a lot of this happens. And here's the other trick in psychology. I'm going to say men are like this, women are like this, and da 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 da. We are making incredible generalizations when we do that. Young people are like this. These are the trends of what it tends to be. It doesn't necessarily mean they all fall in there. Who would mourn more at the death of a child, the father or the mother? And again, odds are the mother would mourn more. And it's not that the father is insensitive, but the father can reproduce, and he can reproduce for a much longer period of time, whereas a mother has a window. And once that window's closed, the ability to sort of send it off into the future is a little bit more limited. Here we go. Talking about this in class again, if you're reviewing, why are women more color sensitive than men? If you go with the evolutionary perspective of psychology, it goes back to the jobs of cavemen is one theory. The idea that women were to hunt and gather, and in gathering they had to gather certain colored berries, and the berries that were ripe were a certain color versus the berries that were poisonous were another color. And if you kept picking the poisonous berries, because your color wasn't good at detecting the differences between the reds and the greens and whatever else, then your people were going to die, your genes don't move forward. But the women who would pick the good berries, the ripe berries, the healthy berries, would take them back to their family, their DNA goes forward. Why are men more likely to ask for directions? And again, it's not egocentrism or anything else like that. It's just that men have a little bit of a better compass generally in our minds. And that is due to, again, the DNA is pushed forward to give you a little bit of that, because men had to go out and hunt and gather the food. And if they couldn't find their way back home, that lack of ability of directions dies off, and the ability to get directions go on, and hopefully that's passed on. Women are more likely to remember a name or a face because women are more in charge of raising the kids and communicating with other families, etc. So those genes go forward. Men are more competitive because resources are scarce. And if you're not competitive, you don't get the wife, you don't get the food, you don't pass stuff forward from one generation to the next. Why do men grow facial hair to attract a mate? Why more cosmetics are meant to make women's features more bright and lighter? And again, this just goes down to attraction. Guys, a description of a lot of men is tall, dark, and handsome. You know, I can't really grow a beard. I look like a radiation victim. But it's the idea of this is a sign of, you know, manliness, virility, and things like that. Whereas women, you know, no matter what your race is, most cosmetics are there to make it brighter, make it softer, and things like that. You know, outside of the fashion, goth or whatever, that tends to be what is looked at as more attraction, that contrast. Why do men use fewer words? Because again, you go back to caveman time, it wasn't their job to talk to anybody. You know, it wasn't their, so they're kind of short and more left logical brain, whereas women are more likely to make emotional connections. We'll talk about down the road when it comes to language. Women use both sides, the left and the right side of the brain when it comes to language. Why are women better listeners and more empathetic? Again, the job of raising the children. And if you were good at it, your DNA got moved forward. Got to put the answers in there. All right. So again, these are all just theories. Are any of them perfect? Of course not. Do some of them have challenges? Of course they do. You know, I'm not a guy. I'm not very competitive. My wife, soccer player in high school and college, much more competitive. And I'm only competitive against her because it's kind of fun to watch her lose. I get a kick out of that. When you see things like this, the more you know, this is where I've just put little graphics in where if you want to go back and you want to take a look at stuff, because a lot of you won't go back and use the textbook, but this will just sort of give you nice things in sort of an infographic way to just give you some statistics and make some comparisons. And again, we're making incredible generalizations when we talk about men versus women and everything else. But even when we get to things like, because a lot of people go, well, what about someone who's gay or straight? We're not talking sexuality, we're talking gender. And men and women, regardless of their sexuality, are kind of pretty similar in the DNA that is created within them. Again, some more infographics there. You got some more there, and you can pause and go back if you'd like to get more of a look at that. And if this is showing up kind of fuzzy on your Zoom, go to the PowerPoint, and it'll give you a clear version of that and more and more and more. So again, the idea of evolutionary psychology, it goes back to the ideas of Darwin, and that the good traits are passed on, and then the bad traits would hopefully die off. You know, we hope that we're a kinder nation than we were 30, 40, 50 years ago. You know, as bad as we still have systematic racism today? Yes, we do, but we don't have segregated lunch counters. Are there some issues with voting today? Yeah, sure, but at least the ability to register to vote. It's more about are you going to take the energy to vote anymore? So it's better. Things have gotten better because hopefully the old things die off. And then the good things pass on. The unattractive genes will stop and the attractive genes will go forward. Now, again, some unattractive genes will continue to go forward, but it's the idea that those would be fewer and far between and the good genes would outnumber those and become, again, more attractive. If you take a look at this statistic right here, it's the idea of men's height and women's height has increased over the years. You go back to the Civil War era here, and men suddenly started to jump up in their height, and women as well, but not to the same sort of degree. But there's this much increase that the average height of a man at the turn of the 20th century is about 5'6". Today it's about 5'10", 5'10 and a half. I'm at 5'11 and a half, 6 foot myself. But the question is why are men taller? Our diet, it hasn't really changed much. Our activity hasn't really changed much. We've become less active, if anything else. So what's the reason that men have become taller? And again, it gets to the idea of what is attractive to a mate. And for women, a description of a man, tall, dark, and handsome. You know, when a woman's dancing with a guy, they don't want to have their hand, they want to up there and protect me, the big beast, and everything else, because there is that inherent need that taller is bigger and bigger is more dominant and stronger, and it's looked at as a more attractive trait. So as a result, taller men are more likely to get into relationships and have successes with this, and they're going to pass on taller DNA. In the same way with intelligence, intelligent people attract other intelligent people because it's an attractive trait. That DNA sort of gets passed forward uh, more often than other DNA will. And again, this happens over hundreds and hundreds of years with this idea of evolutionary psychology. And it doesn't completely weed out, because sometimes it's hard to change who we are, change what we were. So instead, we just hope that the next generation does a little bit better sometimes. So again, it's based on natural evolution. So is psychology based on natural evolution or societal expectations, nature versus nurture? Again, if you're just reviewing this from class, we talked about this. 80% of adult bookstore customers are men or women, and most people would know that those are in fact men. 53% of college blank and 30% of college blank agreed that it was okay for two people to have sex if they really liked each other, even if they didn't know each other that long. Most people in taking this study would know that the bigger number is men and the smaller number is women. And in survey after survey, men claim to have had more sex with more women, up to 5 times more, not always being truthful there, than women claim about men. So again, something's got to give here. Either guys are lying and they're overinflating the number, or girls are lying and underreporting their number, or some girls just really getting around. But the question becomes, why do men claim to have more relationships and all these other things? And a lot of times it comes down to these societal expectations. If you're a guy and you're in a locker room and dudes are talking about, yeah, I was with them, I was with them, and you go, hey guys, that's wrong, and you don't treat women that way, how will other guys take that? And hopefully other guys would take it well and respectful and all these other things. But there's this idea that guys have that I have to act a certain way. And if you go against it, it's a little bit of a problem. And women are afraid that if they are sexually active or they talk about being sexually active, they're going to get labeled in a certain way. And here's what's really interesting about this, as I talked about earlier with homosexuality, gay men are more into casual relationships and they put more of an emphasis on looks than gay women do, which is very much like heterosexual men. Gay men are far more looks oriented, and again, more likely to have more partners than a woman who is gay, who's going to be more into relationships and everything else, which is very similar to a heterosexual woman. So again, it's not about sexuality, it's about your gender. Gay or straight, you're still a man or a woman, okay? And there are these varieties of men and women as well. So the conclusion is that men and women are different. There's no way around it. Men, women, different. Now here's the danger. When a guy's just kidding to a woman, it could be looked at as sexual harassment. And especially in the changing norms that we have going on, the Me Too movement and everything else. And the Me Too movement is good because there's been some guys that have been a little bit over the top and have been a little bit not really being fair about things. And it's not the worst thing in the world to have because, and again, I know guys get a little bit confused because a lot of times guys don't know the difference between a compliment and sexual harassment. For example, calling a woman hot. Man, you're hot. What, I'm complimenting. It's a compliment. It's actually a little bit derogatory because you're just basically identifying her that that's what she is and who she is and that's her value. And she's probably feeling a little bit creepy about you looking at her in that way as well. Now, again, not all women. Some women, thank you. But for a lot of women, it's just sort of, ew, creepy. And so, again, and it's really weird because we're in this time where women are told respect yourself, respect who you are and everything else. And if a guy doesn't do that, he doesn't deserve you. But then the women that are getting the attention are a little bit more out there. It's a very confusing time. It's a confusing time for guys as well. So women have to be careful about the message, because I guess we all assume guys are idiots. But again, me, myself, I've got this issue too. If one of my daughters was leaving the house, if I didn't do it, and I rarely did it, but if her mother is going, hey, Missy, come here. What are you wearing? What are you wearing? Button that up. Don't do that. Don't put that out there because you're going to think you're going to make other people think a certain way, which is really sort of sexist, because we don't do that to guys. You know, I've got 6 sons. Not one of them. I'm sorry, I got 5 sons. I got a son-in-law too. We got 5 sons. Lose track. I got 5 sons, and none of them, as they were growing up, not one of them have I ever stopped at the door and say, "Whoa, whoa, Quincy, what are you wearing? Those pants? You got your tight pants on? You go put your loose pants on. You button that shirt up. I don't want you to think you're all available." We just don't give that conversation to guys, but we give it to girls. Do we trust men that little? And again, when it comes to things like sexual harassment, can men be sexually harassed? Absolutely. But are they as likely to come forward with it? No, because there's a little bit of a humiliation for some guys. They feel, I'm a guy, I'm supposed to be take care of myself, and we treat it wrong. There's a great video I actually have back here. I'm not going to reach up and get it, but a PBS documentary on Frontline called "When Kids Get Life," and it's a study in Colorado of these kids that are serving life terms in prisons, a lot of them for killing their parents. And I'm not saying that dismissively, but these guys that are in this video that had killed their parents or step parents, it was a result of abuse, including sexual abuse, including boys raped by their stepfather, boys raped by their actual mother, and just couldn't take it anymore. And then when it was reported to child services, it was like, it's a boy, they can take care of themselves, or a boy can't be raped. Yeah, they can. But we don't look at it as much. Okay, trying to get past here on this announcement here. So when it comes to evolutionary psychology, what's very important is there's a difference a little bit of what men are looking for and what women are looking for. All right, this is trying to figure out schedules. What men tend to be looking for is healthy and fertile appearance. Women are looking more for healthy appearing. Are you healthy enough to protect me? Can you take care of our group? Whereas guys, it's more, I'm looking for someone healthy so that they can have healthy babies. Because for guys, it's about sending it ahead. For women, it's about what I do produce, I need to protect. Men tend to look for a youthful appearance because it's the idea of, I want her to be fertile for a long time. Women tend to look for somebody mature, dominant, affluent. Again, the ones that I produce, I want to make sure they're in fact protected. So men tend to be more into a casual relationship, women more into a long-term relationship. So the evolutionary explanation for this is very simple. Sperm are cheap, eggs are precious. A woman can only be pregnant with one child at a time, unless it's twins, triplets, whatever. But they have limited opportunities. And once they're pregnant for 9 months, they can't become pregnant again during that time. Whereas a guy could impregnate many people all at the same time and continue it on. Donald Trump, our president of the United States at the time of this video, may get reelected, may not. I'm not going to reproduce these videos. This may last 5-6 years. but President Trump is 76 years of age, and 76 now, or 74, 75. He's up there, but he's got a 15-year-old kid, which many had him in his 60s. Charlie Chaplin had his last kid in his 70s. So there's not sort of that biological clock that women do have to look for. So as a result, men and women look a little bit different because we're trying to send our genes into the future. And for guys, I'll send a bunch out there and a couple will work out. Whereas women, hey, I've only got these to send out there, so I got to make sure all of these are good, so I need a good protector. Now, there are critics of evolutionary psychology. Okay, first off, it's very general. It's a big, big generalization about men and women. Okay, is this really what we think, or is it what we expect others to hear? And we expect guys to go out, find love, make it out of women. Is that our natural instinct, or do we just encourage that sort of a message? And the same thing with women. And with these accepted norms, it discourages people from going outside of the box, because you go outside of the box and you're not sort of fitting in. As much as a parent, as much as I want my children to be unique, I also don't want them to be a freak. So there's where do you want to fit in, but you want to be yourself, and it can get really confusing. And the bottom line is we all take in oxygen, we all kick out carbon dioxide, we all want to be loved, we all want to feel completed, we all want to be the best us we can be. So isn't that really alike? So when we look at differences, men, women, and everything else like that, it's a slippery slope. So evolutionary psychologists would ask questions like, why do infants start to fear strangers about the time they become mobile? Well, about the time you become mobile, your eyes are better and you're starting to recognize different people and you're realizing not every adult is your care. Okay, why do your parents feel that you're special? Because to them you are. You know, your victories are their victories, your defeats are their defeats. You are special to them, but to everybody else, you're traffic. You know, you're in the way. So, but when we look at other people and we want to dismiss them, that's somebody's special. That, you know, when you see people being abused, being yelled at, being screamed at, you just go, but they're special to someone. You know, there's somebody there, but we don't tend to have that empathy sometimes. Why do we have phobias about spiders and snakes, but we're not about guns and electricity? Guns and electricity are far more dangerous than spiders and snakes. Guns and electricity, we think we can control it. You know, I can turn on the lights, turn them off. It's in the switch. I got the steel behind it. I can control that. Guns, I can load it. I can clean it. I can turn the safety on. I can control it. Yeah, I can control mine, but not that I have a gun. But I can't control others. But I don't have a phobia because I think that everybody who has a gun, well, you got a license, you must be okay. So we don't have a phobia about that. But spiders and snakes, you can't control that. Sleeping in the middle of the night, little Miss Muffet laying on your tuffet and right in your mouth. You know, you go sit on that toilet and the cobra comes right. There's nothing that could happen. So we have anxiety, which, by the way, anxiety is good. It's good to have phobias. You know, we'll talk about this with disorders in therapy because phobias allow your genes to go forward. You know, there's the people who just, you know, they're the cavemen who decided, hey, let's jump off that mountain 500 feet into the ocean and let's try it. It'll be fun. It'll be a rush. And those guys died. Their DNA doesn't go forward. It's the coward that said, all right, whatever. Okay, I'm going back to your cave with your woman now because you're dead. It's the cowards whose DNA moves forward because they're more cautious, whereas the risk takers are going to be put out. We display greater empathy and helpfulness towards those who look like us, think like us, and act like us. Why? Because we think they're part of our tribe. You look like me, you act like me, you think like me, you must have some of me DNA in you, so I need to help you. Because even if I don't have kids, you have kids, which are like my kids, so we got to get that going forward. And it's not just race, it's socioeconomic. You know, if you're poor and you're driving down the street and you see somebody in a broken down car, you're going to help them because you know what it's like to have that car where you're going, come on, baby, come on, baby, come on, baby, come on, baby. And you're trying to start it, come on, baby, come on, baby, come on. You know what that's like. You know, but if you're a poor guy in your beat up car and you're driving down the highway, you see somebody pull it over in a Mercedes, you're like, yeah, screw you. You got a Mercedes, you call AAA. Serves you right. You have to struggle. Then at the same time, if I'm driving around in my Mercedes BMW and I see somebody on the side of the road in a beat down car, I'm not going to help them. Yeah, I should have stayed in college. You know, you're not part of my group. And what happens is when we take this and we use it and we divide it and us versus them, we're very tribal. We're very, very tribal. And in election years, those show up. So we divide ourselves by category: men, women, children, grown-ups, race, social order. You go to Cywoods, I go to Ranch, you're this, I'm a Mustang, you're 212. Yeah. It's arbitrary. It's really, really arbitrary, but we like to be part of a group. And that group gives us survival, and that allows our genes to go forward. So when it comes to the nature versus nurture debate, how much of us is pre-wired to turn out a certain way? That's the nature. And how much of us is the sum of our life's experiences? That's the nurture. And the answer depends on what practice of psychology you're subjected to. Most people would be right here, it's 50-50. But again, if you're a biological person and you think it's the brain, or you're an evolutionary psychologist, even a cognitive psychologist, you think it's much more, you're born this certain way, you've got certain tools. Whereas the nurture people would go, you know what, it's all about experiences, and I could take anybody and put them in a better family and give them certain rewards, and they'll become anything. There's some truth on both sides. Yes, we are born with certain things, but if I'm put in an abusive family or a poor socioeconomic position, and there's going to be more hurdles for me, or a certain race, or it could in fact be harder. And at the same time, those who think it's all nurture and you just because you missed opportunities, if I've got a child who's mentally retarded and he has an IQ of 55, I could put him in the greatest schools and the greatest condition. He's not going to become a doctor. He's mentally limited. All right, so there is some nature to it, there is some nurture to it. It's just how much of what. And again, the heavy nature, biological evolutionary psychologists, the heavy nurture, the behavioral psychodynamic theory. But the general rule is 50-50, with a few exceptions, and intelligence, which we'll talk about down the road, is more pre-wired. So when it comes to genetics, and again, I don't want to turn this into a biology class or say something wrong that your biology teacher said, who probably knows this much better than I do. We're really, really similar. 98% of our genetic code is just like a chimpanzee. You know, and that doesn't say that we come from monkeys, but us and monkeys, we're cousins. We came from the same thing. And all of our genetic code is we're 99.9% like everybody else we see. 99.9%. The only difference is our height, our skin color, our susceptibility to illness, disease. If we're more have a better temperament, we're more likely to be susceptible to depression or addiction or whatever else. It's that little 0.1%, the color of eyes you have, whether you become bald or not. You know, all these things are locked in. You know, they're locked in. And these chromosomes that make up 99.9% of us, that doesn't have that variation, is very important in who we become. And again, you take that genetic and you put it with natural selection, the better genes are going to go forward. Again, we talked about this with men. You know, women are more attracted to taller men, that's going to go forward. You take this group of, I don't even know if this is little elk deer things, but you have darker skin is more appealing because the darker skin takes in the heat and it allows you to survive. Let's just say that. So as a result, these darker guys here are going to become more attractive, and then the little white guys here are going to die off, and there, as a result, you're going to have a larger population base here. You know, you've got a short little neck, you can't get up to all this food. Short little neck guy dies, longer neck helps you get through. You know, the mice that go into the background there, it's harder for the hawk to see. You're more likely to survive. You're going to pass your DNA on. So again, we're going to take a certain DNA and move it forward. When we breed certain animals for a temperament, whatever else the case may be, or a cow to produce more milk or more meat or whatever else, or a watermelon not to have seeds. I have no idea how that works. I mean, how do you make a second one? Don't know. But these sort of mutations that we make in order to do these changes. Now, again, there's also something called biological preparedness, where certain phobias are more likely than others. Again, snakes, heights, wild animals, etc., because these have been passed forward, as I said before, because it's going to ensure the survival of the species. You know, you got the guy who's the risk taker, who jumps off the side and does all the crazy things, drinks a lot. They're less likely to pass their DNA on. Whereas the guy who's a little bit more secure, a little bit more steady, a little bit more stable, you know, maybe not as exciting, but that's who, you know, the women may date the bad guy, but then they're going to marry the stable guy quite often. Not all the time, but quite often that's what it's going to be. You can be attracted to a risk taker, a dangerous guy, because that seems dominant when young, but eventually you're looking for that particular thing. And then again, as we said back here, it leads to mutations because a mutation is attractive. The mutation is also in what is attractive. You know, women don't necessarily need a guy to be strong to take care of them, or a big guy to take care of them, because a woman can take care of herself. She can go to defense classes, self-defense classes. She could buy herself a weapon if she wants to. She could get ADT to secure her home. And you don't need the big, strong guy to go out and beat up the woolly mammoth to bring you meat. She can go to HEB. So then it comes down to, what do I need this guy for besides sperm? What do I need him for? And this sort of changes the norm, where suddenly women are going, maybe I want someone who's intelligent. Maybe intelligence becomes attractive. Maybe a sense of humor becomes attractive, because what we have discovered is what men find attractive versus what women find attractive is men look at the physical. They look at the physical because if she's beautiful physically, then that's going to pass on and have beautiful children. But when women look at men, his attractiveness can change. His physical attractiveness can change if these other characteristics come in. And there's more of a change of focus. Now, again, happens when you're older. There's still a lot of girls, oh, he's so hot, oh, he's so cute, ooh, sweating. There's that, okay? But that tends to sort of mutate. And the same thing with guys. The same thing with guys. If you ask me, When I was 16, 17, 18, who was my dream girl? Cindy Crawford. All right, I'm sorry. Little mole, with the dark eyebrows, got the tan, Sports Illustrated. Hey, sure, Cindy Crawford. But you ask me, you know, today, who's my celebrity crush? My wife knows this, and she's okay with it. It's Tina Fey. Tina Fey all day, because Tina Fey's funny, smart, unbelievably smart and funny, and that's attractive. And that's what I love about my wife. Is my wife is smart, she's funny, cracks me up, and she enjoys cracking me up. And occasionally she'll put on her Tina Fey glasses too. Not bad. All right, so sometimes when it comes to behavior, oh my God, I realize this is all recorded and can be used against me. When it comes down to behavior genetics, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll look at twin studies. The great thing about looking at twin studies is these are two people with the exact same DNA, the exact same DNA. All right, so when we got identical twins, you got one sperm hits one egg, some freak situation happens, and now you got two babies exactly the same. Whereas you got fraternal twins, you've got this one over here and this one over here, two different sperm hit two different eggs. So these are just like any other brother and sister. A lot of times fraternal twins will be the result of artificial insemination, where sometimes you have triplets, quadruplets, the octomom, whatever, where it's just like having a bunch of brothers and sisters that are all born at the same time. But identical twins, you get the exact same DNA. You get the exact same DNA. So this is a good study to do. So when you take a look at identical twin studies, the really interesting ones are ones where they separated them at birth. They got adopted by different families, which you shouldn't do. It sucks. It's terrible. I mean, you take away their sibling. They already don't have their parents, and now you're taking away this. It just sucks. But what they do is they go, how different are they due to environment? So we can literally see the nature versus nurture. The nature, they both have the same DNA, give them a different nurture and see what happens. A really controversial study was done with these guys right here. These were triplets, identical triplets that were born in New York City. And they went to this particular hospital. And this hospital went to an adoption agency because the mother and father didn't want to have the kids. And so they were adopted out, but not only were they adopted out, one happened to be adopted out to a lower class family, one was adopted out to a working class family, and one was adopted out to a very, very wealthy family. And that wasn't just coincidence, because they went back and they did a study on these hospitals, and they found out that they were doing these tests totally unethical. These guys happened to find one another when they were at college. One guy was going to a college, and his friend mistaked him for another guy, and he discovered, oh, I got a twin. And then they discovered they had a trip. They went on TV with their story, and then they discovered there was another guy. And so later in their 20s and 30s, they discover that they're triplets. And it's a really interesting story, but it's kind of a tragic story as well. I think this is on Netflix. I think it's called, there it is, Three Identical Strangers. It's on Netflix if you want to watch something, if you're tired of YouTube and what you're YouTubing, take a look at that. It's really sort of interesting. So what we do is we look at this idea of heritability, okay? May vary depending on the range of populations. Heritability due to genes would increase in proportion if everybody went to the same school, if every school had the same teachers, if all families were equally loving, all neighborhoods, everything else. But even if people have similar heredities but were raised drastically different, it would decrease in proportion. Differences within groups are almost entirely genetic. It's based on the seed. I put this seed in this soil, there's some variations. I put this seed in this soil, there's still some variations. Fertile soil, poor soil, some are still going to rise to the top, whatever. All right. So, but even here's the other trick. Were you born first or were you born fourth? You know, I'll make the argument, we'll talk about this more in the next lecture when we talk about environment. You weren't even raised by the same parents as your brothers and sisters. Because if you were the oldest child, you're raised by new parents. Parents that have never done this before. Parents that took 58 pictures of every moment of your life and posted them and everything else. And then you get to the younger kid, you have 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, and it's like, oh, they did that? Yeah, I remember my brothers did it. And they're not as hands-on with those kids. But at the same time, those kids are given more freedom than the oldest kids. So can that have an impact on who you are? Because your heritability is there, but your nurture is going to change. So heritability can't explain everything. Okay, some people are taller and heavier than they were 200 years ago. There's certain genes that are wanted through evolution. But we know that nature enables nurture. Okay, if a child is born with a kind, sweet temperament, they're going to be treated differently from their parents. You know, you're not treated the same as your brothers and sisters because you're different than your brothers and sisters, assuming you have brothers and sisters. You know, some kids are difficult. Some of my kids, I'd have to stay on top of. Are your grades in? Are you eligible? Is everything okay? But then there's some of my kids, I just checked my daughter's. She's going into her senior year when I'm making this video, and I just looked at her transcript for the first time this summer as I was trying to enroll her in face-to-face instruction. And it's the first time I looked at her grades her entire life because she's just self-motivated. So again, the happy baby is going to get more love and whatever, and they're going to be a happier baby. The difficult baby is going to be, oh, he's difficult. I don't want to pick him up, and he's going to become more difficult. So, you know, if you've got you've got an athletic parent passing on athletic DNA, they're more likely to put their kid in sports as well, because they got the athletic DNA. But also, I'm in the mindset that I like sports. So there's all those things that get involved. One thing, and this gets really interesting, is temperament. Temperament is your personal characteristics, your intensities, everything else. Again, difficult babies are going to be treated a little bit worse than loving babies. So it's not just you were born with this, it's going to shape your environment. It's going to shape how you're treated. Stanford marshmallow test in 1965, very interesting study that they did. They took preschoolers, they asked them if they wanted to eat a marshmallow. Here's a marshmallow, put them in front, 4-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid, here's a marshmallow. You want to eat it now? Or if you wait till I come back, you get a second marshmallow. So you can have your marshmallow right now, or you wait, and when I come back, another marshmallow. And about half the kids waited, you know, some of them very torturous right here. And about half the kids ate the marshmallow right away. And they did a longitudinal study, which meant that they watched the same kid for a long period of time. And what they discovered was the kids who ate the marshmallow right away were more likely to be drug addicts, were more likely to have fewer friends, were more likely to get into credit card debt, were more likely to go to jail, were less likely to do well in school, less likely to go to college. Yet the kids, I know what you're saying, well, what the hell's in the marshmallow? But the kids who waited for the second marshmallow were less likely to get into credit card debt, more likely to have more friends and trusting relationships. They were also going to be more successful in school and all these other things, because it's the idea at that early age, they had the temperament that if I want something better, I'll wait for it. I'll wait for something better versus I need this reward right away. And this, by the way, is becoming an argument with these things right now. The mask. Do you wear the mask now? Do you take the inconvenience now, hoping that by wearing this for a little bit now, that eventually the virus will go away and we can go back to normal? This isn't a new normal. You know, it's a temporary normal. Then we can go back to normal. Or you go, I have freedoms, I have rights, I don't have to wear this, I'm an American, I get to do what I want because the odds of me getting this is like being struck by lightning. And forget the struck by lightning thing, because when it rains outside and it's lightning, we don't run around with steel poles, we stay inside. But the people who don't want to wear the mask and don't have the patience for it and everything else, or I read a study, or you can't tell me what to do, it's against my freedoms, this could probably be traced back a long, long time. You know, it's the marshmallow test. And since not everybody's going by the same rules, it's going to take a little bit longer for this thing to process, right or wrong. It's going to take a little bit longer. Now, what's also very interesting about this study is it has an impact socioeconomically. Kids who are wealthier were more likely to wait for the marshmallow than kids who were poor. Does that mean the kids who were poor had less temperament? No. Kids who were poor had had a lot of promises broken to them. Hey, you just wait and I'll give you something better later. And then that something better never comes along. I better take, you know, one in the hand is worth more than two in the bush. You know, this is what I have and I need to take it now because I can't be sure that that reward that's promised for me will be there later. So that's why they don't wait for the next thing. You know, it's the person who does drugs. You know, yeah, I'm getting high now because tomorrow's not promised. Yeah, but then you also want to take care of your health now. You don't want to eat bad now. You know, you want to take care of your body because you want it to last. You get one set of teeth, you get one pair of eyes, you get one body. It's the miles, you know. It's not how old you, it's not the years, it's the mileage, you know. So how well are you treating your body? So it's a really sort of tricky thing that we're looking at there with this marshmallow test. And I did it with my own daughter, you know, when she was younger. I had to take her to a movie, which was just weird. But when I took her to The Princess and the Frog, I said, I can't do this anymore. So when she's about 5 or 6, we made a deal. I said, listen, if there's a movie you want to see, if you wait 7 months, I'll buy you the DVD. You have the DVD, throw on the DVD. And she said, okay. And she would wait 7 months. She could get the DVD so she could watch it as many times as she wanted, not just once in the theater. And it worked out better for me because then I didn't have to watch these movies. And I didn't have to pay 2 tickets. I didn't have to pay overpriced popcorn and soda and stuff like that. So it was a win-win. Did this in class for the on-level students, had you guys rank these different things. Maybe we did this in class, maybe we didn't. But these are 18 different characteristics that people were asked to rank. Ambition and industriousness, chastity, dependable character, desire for home and children, education and intelligence, emotional stability, favorable social status, good cook and housekeeper, good financial prospect, good health, good looks, mutual attraction, pleasing disposition, refinement and neatness, similar education, political background, religious background, social ability. And they were asked to rank these. How important are these? And looking for a mate and looking for a partner, how important is it that that partner has these characteristics? And put them in 1 of 3 categories. I would have it put in 1 through 3. If it's 1 through 6, it's a deal breaker. They got to have it. If it's 13 through 18, who cares? And if it's in the middle, that'd be nice. It'd be nice. I mean, if they don't have a great, it'd be nice. So where do these things rank, and do men and women rank them that much differently? Well, when this study was done, how they ended up rating them, women put the least important thing was chastity, prior sexual experience. Men, you would go, well, do they put it the same, or do they put it higher? Do they put it significant? Do they put it, I'm sorry, using my finger, you can't see that. Do they put the same, a little higher, or much higher? And guys, it really wasn't that much higher. And then you take something like similar political background. Women put that as the second least important thing, and men put it as the least important thing. Now, again, this study was done about 10 years ago, much before a lot of our polarization happened. But politics, not that big of a deal when looking for a mate. And we're not looking for someone to date. We're looking for someone long term. Good cook and housekeeper, women put that at 16, as that's what they expected of their partner, to be a good cook and housekeeper. Men put that a little bit higher. You're still in the green, you're still in the bottom 6, but they did put that a little bit higher. Similar religious background, women put that at 15, men also put it at 15. Favorable social status, women put that at 14, men put it also at 14. And when it came to good looks, women put it at 13, and men, same, higher. Now, it's not in the top third, it's still a little bit higher, but it's not way, way up here. Okay, now again, you're looking for a partner for all of your life. Refinement and neatness. So now we get into the middle 6. Women put that at 12, men put that a little bit higher because, again, is this woman going to be able to raise my kids? Good financial prospect, women put that at 11th, and men put that far lower. So the idea that guys are going to depend on their partner for finances much less than women would be likely to depend on theirs. Similar education, women put that at 10, men put that at 12. Good health, women put that at 9. Now men, higher, because good health is you're going to produce the children. I want you to healthy to produce these kids. Sociability, women put that at 8, men put that the same. Desire for home and children, women put it 7, men put it 9. Ambition and industriousness, how much of a drive do you have? Women expected that of their partner, men, not as much. Here's where it gets interesting now. So 6 through 18, we've used them all up. So when we're talking about what women are looking for in a relationship and what men are looking for in a relationship, and by the way, this is also gay women and gay men as well, the top 5 are all still on the board. And women put education and intelligence as 5, men also did. Pleasing disposition at 4, men also did. Dependable character at 3, men also did. Emotional stability at 2, so did guys, and both of them put mutual attraction. Am I as attracted to this person as they are to me? That was number 1 for both. So as much as we like to say that we're different, we're really very similar. We're really very similar in who we are and what we do. Okay, some other graphics there if you want to take a look at them, and that should wrap this up. So again, for AP Psych, this was Unit 2, Lecture 6, and for my on-level Psych, this should be Unit 1, Lecture 1. All right. Any questions, again, feel free to reach out to me, office times, in class, anything else, email, anything else you have.